Hard Gaming. Game, survive, win.
What is up YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Tab's tutorial. Name pending, I guess. Anyway, we're moving over to tab 2, oxygen tab now, and that is a very important one based on the name of the game, right, which is oxygen not included, and starting from the very beginning. So when you start the game, obviously you remember again, just as a caveat, these the tabs are complete. I've basically cheated it in so everything is unlocked. So you will not start with everything you see on the screen, but what you will start with is the 𝐿𝐔 or 𝐿𝐔𝐁, however you want to pronounce it, terrarium. It's quite simple as a building. So this basically turns carbon dioxide and algae into oxygen. So if there was carbon dioxide in the bottom here, it would of course work. It's not at the minute because it needs water and a few other things as well, and it's not getting them. But as it stands, that's a very simple way of producing oxygen and the easiest, cheapest way to start with. But of course you do need algae. Without algae and carbon dioxide, so you want to put these at the bottom of a base. As you know, the oxygen always floats to the top. The carbon dioxide would sit at the bottom. If this is in oxygen as it is now, it won't work. It needs to be in the actual part of the base where it's catching your carbon dioxide. Next one across is the oxygen diffuser. This is the next level of this. So this also uses algae. It doesn't need carbon dioxide. It just uses algae and power, and creates a decent pressure, actually up to about 2 kilos of oxygen. What's the pressure in here? About, yeah, 1.8, so nearly 2. And you can see it's at max pressure, so it won't go above this 1.818 grams that you can see, so 1.8 kilos. And again, just uses algae and power. In terms of how much power, the answer to that question is, boom, 120. It's a very common number, 120 watts. But that's what it requires. They're pretty much what you will go through till mid-game. Late game, you will obviously go a long way from there. Again, if you don't have algae, then both of these are a bit useless. The next thing is a brand new thing added by the Frozen Planet thing, and it's not really a generator more than it is just as somewhere to store it. So your oxalite, as you know, will just continuously off gas oxygen until it depletes. The only way to stop it actually is, as you can see, hitting it at max pressure. So because this room is max pressure, these two oxalites are not sublimating or off-gassing as it's called. You can see it stores a small amount or a small chunk of oxalite which gradually releases oxygen into the environment. Scones prevent diffusing oxygen from being wasted inside storage bins. So you put it in there, it won't waste it. If you store the oxalite in a storage bin, which was from the previous episode of tab table 1, in these, any of these storage vessels, you put oxalite in them, it will still gas off, same as anything would in these. So the sconce helps you stop that and is more efficient. Again, you won't really find, I mean, when you first start the game, the map normally has a little bit of this in to get you going, but you very quickly have to move over to the 𝐿𝐔 terrarium. If you're playing on the Frozen mod pack, that's, well, I say mod, the Frozen pack, of course, that starts you in a frozen biome, and you'll only have oxalite. You won't be able to get algae, so you will be using the oxalite, and these sconces are the option. So, electrolyzer is what it says on the tin. You probably know this by now, and it's the same principle with game, and this is your mid to late game option that most people will use. So this is simple. This machine is right here, and this machine simply breaks H2O into its chemicals. So it breaks down the hydrogen and the oxygen chemicals, or the elements, and breaks them in two. So in this room you can actually see, I don't have the overlay, but you can see this blue here is the oxygen, and at the very top there is your hydrogen, and all this does is it splits the water. So if you pump in water here, you can see that the water goes into the electrolysis machines. It then throws out the hydrogen, which of course being so light floats to the top, and the oxygen, which being heavier, floats to the bottom. Now this room is a very, very basic setup of how you would do this. So I have an element sensor here that is specifically looking for oxygen, and I have an element sensor here that is specifically looking for hydrogen. So if we were to have this running, you would have this pipe going into your base and this pipe going into storage or into a room that you want to control the temperature of. Hydrogen is a fantastic gas for thermoconductivity, so if you want a room to stay hot or cold, hydrogen is your best option for doing that. Oxygen, of course, you want it to go in your base because, well, oxygen is important. If we now switch over to this, you can see that this oxygen now is being gassed off into this room. And these are now working, so they use a small amount of water, turn that into oxygen, and you can see, actually, if we go onto this one, you can see these black dots are the hydrogen. And I say black dots, they're clearly red. The red dots are hydrogen, and the dark blue are oxygen. And you can see that the red dots are speckling around this bottom area here and then going up. You won't see any down here because this is where the oxygen is settling. And this automated system just means that when the hydrogen stops, as it has here, this will automatically stop pumping it. This, to be honest, is a bit of a rough setup. I would set it up a bit better than this because you're going to get, I'm not sure if it will show it, yeah, you're going to get some oxygen escaping there. So I would clean this up a bit and make it so it works a lot better. The element sensor really should be a bit lower down, like here, so that both of these tiles get filled up with hydrogen. And on this tile, seeing the hydrogen, it will pump it, and then you won't get it wasting oxygen. Down here, you're fine because it's so heavy, the oxygen that is. It will sit down here, and this will work nicely. Obviously, it sees that this is now getting backed up with pressure. Now, obviously, it's going to fill up all of this slowly, but the gas will slowly pressurise out. You can see it working. It does what it does, and it does what it says on the tin. What I'll do is, I'll do that. And, of course, it all stops working when there's nowhere for that gas to go. The next one across on the list is the rust deoxidizer. Now, it says on here, you can see it, it converts rust into oxygen and chlorine, so very similar to the one that we've already just done, but this makes chlorine and oxygen. Now the chlorine is in fact lighter than the oxygen, so the opposite way round, oxygen is heavier, lighter than the chlorine, so you're going to get the chlorine at the bottom and the hydrogen at the top. Now, other than the chlorine being quite a terrible gas to have about, and I mean hydrogen's not great, but because that goes to the top it makes it easier. This sitting at the bottom is a bit awkward, though you could still just put your pump system like this in this top corner here, and then obviously off gas the, and I'll show you actually, don't take 2 seconds. So if we just quickly throw our pipe here, and we're obviously going to need power, which I'm pretty sure I've hidden it in the wall. Yeah, there it goes. Obviously, it's going to need an automated system. I'm not going to bother with that because we'll look at the automated system and stuff more when we get to the tab. But by principle now, this is going to be chucking that oxygen out. Just the same principle as the one that we've already looked at, but it's just doing it from the top instead of the bottom. Chlorine is quite a serious thing to mess about with, so just be careful. And of course, it requires rust. As you can see, it looks like it produces salt as well. Does it? Rust and salt goes in, oxygen comes out. There you go, so it needs salt as well. Nicely done. Now over here, and on the list, you can see the deodorizer. Now this has one job, and all that job is it turns polluted oxygen into clean oxygen. Both of them are breathable. Both of them will keep your duplicates alive. However, if they breathe in the polluted oxygen, there is a germ in the polluted oxygen, and it is, I think it's slime lung. Off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure it's slime lung. But either way, they get yucky lung as a disease from breathing in the polluted oxygen. So they will survive, they will live. And of course, if that's all you've got, it's definitely better than them suffocating. But these deodorizers just use sand to filter the polluted oxygen from the air, reducing disease spread. But that produces clean oxygen and clay, I believe it is. Yes, clay, as you can see there. The clay then can be used to make ceramics and things like that. So the clay is a valuable resource. So all in all, this process, as well as it making it better for your duplicants, it also gives you a resource that's vital, being clay. Now, as you can see, the way this is settled is the polluted oxygen does appear to be heavier here, but it's also at the top as well. So they are equal. Polluted oxygen and clean oxygen are both equal in mass. So all it's going to do is create a barrier of where they sit. So you can see this area here, and I can use the dig tool to select. So this area here you can see is clean. And then down here, you've got the polluted oxygen, and here you've got polluted oxygen. And it will stay like that. So to get this to get cleaned, or this to get cleaned, you will have to build more of these, like so. They have an area that they cover. Again, it's sort of like that. And the oxygen gases do move, but very, very slowly. So don't expect putting 1 or 2 in a giant room to work. You would have to spread these out and move them about as and when you see it. And then moving over to the carbon skimmer, which is this machine here. Now this speeds up the conversion of polluted dirt into polluted oxygen. So polluted dirt that you will get from your toilets is the, other than the map, of course, but you also have the byproduct. Now you can use the sewage type thing. I think, I can't remember where it was now. I think it's under, is it stations? Can't remember, but we'll get there anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much. Composting heap, yes, this. So this you use to reduce the polluted dirt and other composites down into dirt. So this turns polluted dirt into dirt, but this off-gasses it so that you get polluted oxygen. Now this may look like a waste of time, but actually if you think about it, using premises that we've used before, we can clean this oxygen. So actually putting a couple of these deodorizers just sort of above this machine. So if I was to do that and then put a couple of these, maybe even one, but I always like to sort of second guess myself basically, and then power them. Obviously they're going to need sand, which we don't have, but they would then clean, and what you're going to have then is you're turning polluted dirt into clean oxygen, which would be up here. So to me, that is a very good way of using your polluted dirt and turning it into oxygen. Of course, you can turn it into soil as well. It just depends on what you need and how you're going. If you've got a electrolysis set up like this setup, and you've got enough water to run it, to be honest, you don't really need to get oxygen from anywhere else, because that is the end game way of doing it anyway, I would say. And then oxygen, carbon skimmer. And obviously that one before was a sublimation station for reference. Carbon skimmer is the one that we're looking at now. And this uses water to filter out carbon dioxide from the air. Now, looking at this, you can see, I don't think there's any carbon dioxide left in here, right? No. And if you look in this storage, you can see it's got polluted water. So what happens is, if we get this cell painter and we say carbon dioxide gas, and let's do quite a lot, so 5 kilo, that's probably too much, 2 kilo, sure, and then fill this. There we go. So this machine is now taking that carbon out of the air, mixing it with the water, making the water polluted water, and sending it on its way. Now I'm just storing it as the purposes of this video, but you can put this into a refinement system and clean that water back to clean water, and you will then turn basically the carbon dioxide into clay. Again, that's this tab over here, so don't forget to subscribe if you want to watch the rest of the episodes, but for now you can see it working. Now, just as a caveat and a note, it's only taking the carbon dioxide away, so eventually this room will end up like it was before. It's not creating oxygen, it's just taking it away. Now you could, at the bottom of your base, if you've got a massive area, like I've had many a times with mega bases, you get a huge area of carbon dioxide like this, you can use this to take that carbon dioxide away as polluted water, or you could just set up a gas vent to gas it off. Or alternatively, you could of course put a crap load of these down, but efficiency wise they wouldn't be worth it, and this is what this machine is for. Now, luckily for everybody, as it is a tab only episode, this one is a short one because there's a lot less on this one than normal. So we are at time for this episode, and this is tab 2, oxygen. If you want to see the rest of them, then please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the video, please like, any comments are welcome. As always, until next time, take care. Goodbye.